Well, Joe, thank you very much for joining us and taking the time to chat about some of the highlights of the summer and the 100 tournament, which has been a great success, really, hasn't it?
Yeah, it was a fantastic sort of 4 weeks of the competition that we finally got to see after obviously the postponement in 2020. It was just fast and furious. It seemed to sort of fly by. I can't believe we're sort of a month after already now reviewing the competition and looking back at what was, I guess, particularly as you think of the context of the pandemic and everything that happened, and we sort of unsure about what was going to happen in terms of attendances and capacities at the ground, to then being able to sell to nearly sort of 80% attendance for the whole competition was just phenomenal achievement. And there's some really great highlights. Like I said, the women's competition just seemed to really grow, and lots of great cricket, world-class cricket, and new fans coming through the door who'd never been to cricket before. So yeah, really proud achievement on behalf of everybody who worked on it and the rest of the game, really.
Congratulations to you and the team, because it's having seen some of the data and some of the highlights, it's certainly achieved what you set out to achieve. And just let's go back to talk about that planning and the complexity of it because of the pandemic and the government regulations. And as you know, it was delayed a year. How did you navigate all that? I mean, not just from a regulation perspective, the government, also from people's concerns about safety and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, look, it was such an unusual planning phase in terms of media buy-in, because obviously we're trying to forecast and second guess consumer confidence to begin with. Like, what are people feeling about buying tickets for this event that they've never seen before, never heard of before, particularly when the world was telling them, or the government in the UK was telling them, to stay inside. So you sort of predicting consumer confidence, you're trying to second guess what the government is going to do in July, August of 2021. So this was sort of, if you think back to where we started planning, is November sort of 2019, and then had various planning phases throughout that. We just never knew at any given moment what the government was going to decide. And actually they didn't decide right up until, I think it was about the 12th of July. So we found out pretty much on the 12th that we were going to be allowed to have full stadia. Which obviously sounds like, did we just do everything on the 12th of July? Of course not. We probably rebriefed Threepipe Reply about 4 or 5 times. I know Farad and the team,
more than that, I'd say.
Farad and the team probably cursed me behind closed doors, but they were really a massive part of this. And I think some of the mantra that we had with the team was all about having flexible and sort of multiple plans, really, to think about, well, what happens if we are in a zero capacity situation? What happens if we're going to be 50% and then 100%? So we came up with 3 very sort of, okay, well, rather than having 10 or 20 plans for loads of different iterations, let's try and focus on three, which was 0, 50 and 100. And we just tried to remove the risk. We tried to remove the risk of the what ifs. What if we're in a lockdown right up until the tournament, and then they let everyone out? What if they start to let people out in April, but we're still unsure about how many tickets we need to sell? Try not to spend our budget too early as well. So we sort of used a lot of the time, and we worked with Farad and the team to understand again what are his planning timelines as well. Like, when do we need to make decisions with various different media owners across all of the different channels. We probably put a lot of pressure on you guys actually to help deliver that, but we were really acutely aware that we needed to stick to our guns of that. Regardless of what happens, whether you're in a 0, a 50 or 100% capacity situation, we still needed to make people aware and consider this brand new competition, because if it was 0, we still had a great broadcast product to go live. So it was always about using our sales windows throughout that period of time. So we went on sale to priority window in and around February, March time. We then had a second priority window ahead of general on sale, and then we were into general on sale. And each of those key windows, we would take almost a sort of a check, a rain check of where we were, analyze the current levels of sale, who was buying those tickets, the level and propensity and frequency they were buying those tickets at, and then adapt our plans as we move forward. And we remained fairly digital. I think, like I say, at the time, you normally, when you're planning your media, is you find an audience and you try and understand their sort of media buying habits. Through the pandemic, that got completely blown out of the water. That there was people obviously using desktop computers more at home. They were consuming more video on demand. Cinema completely went out the window. So the plan that we had in November, October of 2019, just literally had to get torn up. And we were, again, having to forecast, well, what could happen to these people if they decide to let them back into city centres, for instance? Does our out-of-home strategy become really important? So I think, going back to what I was saying before, it was about removing some of that risk. And in the end, we used some of our budget to go on to things like TV, again, to try and just remove that risk of people not being allowed back into city centres, and just having that flexibility around digital to move and manage budgets effectively into places that would help us as we build up to the competition.
Yeah, and obviously digital gives you some agility in that planning away from sort of more traditional channels. But I think the challenges were every other brand was trying to sort of maximise the opportunity and take advantage of digital media as well. So the prices were going up and publishers putting you under pressure to book as well. So it was a tricky time, wasn't it, to actually get everything together? Yeah,
really tricky. I've said, touching wood, that I hope next year will be slightly easier. And I said to Farad, hopefully we can, and the team, let's say, hopefully we'll just be briefing this side of Christmas, and that'll be it. And we'll be just working towards those plans as we get into the new year. But I think it was an important lesson, actually, for everybody about having variations of plans to be nimble and be flexible, because it definitely helped us. And if you think about sort of the more positive side of things, is when the world was opened up on the 12th of July, and when we got to that first game, we'd done a really great job at the top of the funnel and the middle of the funnel to drive people down. And actually then we focused on our conversion activity as we'd always planned. So I feel that even though it was tricky, I feel that we got our strategy bang on, and we were able to capitalize on that, which I think led to, if you think of the first, I think we sold 100,000 tickets in the first four days of the competition, which is a record for cricket in this country.
Yeah, amazing. Now, obviously, we talk about that conversion piece, and how much of that messaging that you were delivering at that point was just generally around safety and hygiene and allaying some of people's concerns. Even though everything had opened up, a lot of people were still hesitant about attending mass, participation events. So, how much of a structure, or how much of that messaging was coming through as part of the comms or the?
Yeah. It was obviously we sort of dip sample audiences. We did more so regularly through the pandemic in terms of understanding, let's say, how they were feeling about new events. Were they likely to buy? If they were, when would they most likely buy? And then the final piece, which is, and what factors would help them buy a ticket. And overwhelmingly, it was actually about a strong refund policy. Actually, they just wanted comfort that if they did buy and they took the risk, were you going to sort of help them get their money back? But then also, like you said, about being really, really honest and open about how you could make their experience safe and secure. So we did a lot of work with our digital team actually on the website, and made sure that we updated all of that through FAQs, through some of our content. And we just, like I said, we always wanted to talk about the event experience, but we just made it really clear that people could obviously attend our event really safely. We're doing everything that we could. And then then get their money back if the world was to change again.
Let's talk quickly about the audiences and who actually attended the 100 and how it differed from the other tournaments that are happening at the same time, so T20, the obvious tournament. So how much of a focus was on new audiences at the 100 and how successful were we in making that happen?
Yeah, sure. So look, new has always been a tricky word for the 100. I think, let's say we've learned some lessons about talking about new audiences, because it sounds like it alienates the current fan base of cricket, which we have millions of fans who love our game, and that's across all formats. The 100 is a part of cricket's portfolio of competitions. We have everything from Test cricket, 5 days, more core traditionalist format, through to domestic T20 Vitality, T20 Blast, and then the 100. And each of them has a role to play for the relevant audience. And what we actually talk about more about is broadening the game. So the reason why the 100, as you're well aware, Jim, was created was about giving something for people who felt that cricket was a little bit male and a little bit elitist. Actually, the 100 is there to break down those barriers. So for us, the 100 was always about broadening the game. New to cricket is difficult to measure. The way that we measure it actually through the 100 was about has that person purchased a ticket for that venue in the last, I think it might have been 8 years or whatever it might have been. But actually our media spend was focused on the broadening of the game. And we focus that heavily on sporty families and female sports fans. And there's a nuance in there that it's not women who like women's sport, it's women who like sport. And we used our paid spend to do the hard yards in audiences that you could argue the game hasn't historically had massive relationship with. In terms of going back to I think the traditional and core audiences, we still obviously have a great amount of data that we use to attract to the 100, but the message was really clear. Come to the 100 and bring somebody new, bring your family, bring your friends. Lots of stories that we had around dads and mums who brought their sons and daughters to the 100 for the first time. And they wouldn't do that for a test match. They say they use their test match or a T20 occasion to go with their friends, but the 100 is positioned about bringing your family, and it's a sports and entertainment product that will deliver against that. So I think, look, we in terms of sort of some of the KPIs, our ambitions are to have more under 45 ticket buyers, more female ticket buyers, and more junior tickets in basket. And we did a really solid job on that in 2021. We had just shy of 20% junior ticket buyers for the competition. Under 45 was around 60%, and then female ticket buyers again was 21. And again, going back to, if you look sort of higher up the funnel and the work that we did with Threepipe Reply, was that we can see clearly that we had a really strong engagement with sporty families and female sporty females at the top and the middle of the funnel. And we're seeing really good signs of people starting to engage with the 100 more broadly right across the funnel. We just now need to work even harder next year to convert them into ticket buyers. But I think everyone is fully sort of, again, as we go back, you asked me at the start of the call how people feel about what we've achieved, and I think we've started the journey of where we want to get to for 2024.
I think one of the successes of the tournament has been women's sport. And we talk about when more women buy a ticket, bring my daughters to the game. I agree, even anecdotally seeing people who normally attend Test or T20 bringing their children for the first time. I witnessed that and talked to other parents about it. It's great to see data backing that up as well. But women's sport, it was incredible to see. The double headers had a big part to play in that, I think. I mean, I personally enjoyed the women's cricket more than the men's cricket. I saw bigger hits, bring the boundaries in, you saw bigger hits and fours and sixes. So I mean, it feels like it created a real platform for women's sport this summer, especially for cricket more generally, getting people more interested in women's sport.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I couldn't agree more. I think it was absolutely game changing for our sport. I'm lucky to have worked on with England women. I've lucky enough to work with the Kia Super League previously, which in their own rights are also game changing things that are happening to the sport. But the 100 seem to just send the game into this really sort of high spinning trajectory. And you mentioned the double headers. I think, look, everyone is being really transparent. The double headers was actually due to the pandemic. It wasn't always supposed to be like that. It was supposed to be women's matches held in grounds that are slightly smaller, that when you fill to sort of 3,000-4,000 appear really full. And due to the pandemic, we had to make some really tough calls about how we were going to present this competition in a world that could be behind closed doors. So we took some tough calls. But what that allowed was this sort of equal presentation of the men's and the women's teams. It obviously also gave a really great day out for families. I mean, £5 for kids and very accessible adult ticket prices for a full day out on a weekend. Like I say, there's not much sort of other leisure activities you can get that sort of meet that. But equal billing, the same DJs, the same fireworks, the music and everything, and the bigger grounds. Obviously, with bigger grounds, it does mean that we could get to, what was it in the end, to just over 250,000 people who attended the women's matches and that were in the ground while the women's matches were happening. That was about 50% of the overall total, which again is a record for cricket in this country. I would say that just wasn't a circumstance of just this season. I think gender balance is something that we've always had at the heart of this competition. And when we talk about how does that sort of land into our plans? It's the equal investment in marketing. We put the men and the women's players together on the same website, in all of our content, in our player announcements. We talk to our commercial partners about the opportunity in the women's competition as much as the men's competition, and the mantra of one team and two squads is in the heart of everything that we do. There's definitely more that we can do. I mean, equal prize money was one real big sign of intent, but we're getting quite a few sports now either talking about us on podcasts and things like this, or reaching out to us and asking us a little bit about how we went about our business. But as I said, I think that will only continue to grow. It's been amazing to see some of the athletes as well, the female athletes, almost turn into superstars overnight. Izzy Wong is one of their capsy who just got named the Young Cricketer of the Year by the Cricket Writers, both men and women. And I think once you start creating heroes, it's going to filter down through the rest of the game, right the way through to the grassroots. And for young girls, Beth Barrett-Wild, who's the head of the women's competition, talked very much about when she was a 10-year-old, and actually Mike Atherton was her hero. But that was due to her not having female role models in the game, and hopefully we're going to change that, which is a really special part of what working on the 100 is about.
I think you should have taken credit for this, and that it was a part of the original strategy, because an amazing byproduct of COVID and the pandemic has created a situation where it's just a perfect platform, I think, to have those double headers, and the good it's done playing, especially for women and generally, I think was awesome, actually. So, but congratulations to you and the team. As you say, going into planning for next year and building on those foundations. Are we going to see anything? You can't give anything away, probably, but anything really different, or is it just doing more of the same and better next year? Are we going to see anything, another sort of creative twist on the game?
Yeah, look, we're reviewing things. There are things that across the sort of event presentation that we think we can definitely improve on. We probably tried to cram a bit too much in, and and try to make it too sort of busy. I think we can listen to a bit of our customer feedback on how to present things better. We couldn't do any player appearances or any engagement with the communities that these teams are living in. I think that is a really important part of the plans moving forward. I mean, if you think about even merchandise sales, which is something I haven't probably talked about, like we probably never, we expected strong merchandise sales in sort of year 3, maybe year 4, let these teams embed, people to sort of get used to them. But people were literally coming through the gates and online and buying hats and shirts. You probably saw for yourself.
The sun was too bright.
But yeah, look, we want to invest in the teams. I think, like I say, longer term, the 100 brand is massively important, but the team brands, like I said, we built them on research in the communities that we're working in, and we want to continue to invest in those longer term. So that's a little bit of what you will see. But look, it's year 2. It's now not a pandemic. People have more leisure opportunities and things available to them, particularly families who probably didn't go on holiday in 2021, and we have to be, I think, realistic that next year is just as tough as it probably has been this year. So yeah, we will continue to focus on those audiences that I spoke about before, families and females, and use I think a lot of our paid activity to attract them to our sport. But we always joke that we sold the experience of the 100 probably on three photographs last year, because we didn't have anything to showcase, and now we have a huge amount of content and imagery to tell people what the 100 is. So hopefully we can use that more effectively across our plans moving forward as well.
Well, so thank you for your time in chatting to us about this year and also some of the plans.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it, and look forward to seeing 100 come back in 2022.
Great, thanks for having me, Jim.
Thank you.